Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Josh Owen, the Vignelli Distinguished Professor of Design and Director of the Vignelli Center for Design Studies. Tonight marks the third and final event of our Spring 24 Vignelli Design Conversations series, presented by Design Milk and RIT's Magic Center, and made possible in part by the generosity of RIT alumnus Chris Bailey and Bailey Brand Consulting. I'd like to begin by offering my thanks to RIT's Magic Center and their team of faculty, staff, and students, as well as our interpreters for this evening, Denise Herrera and Amy Rios-Richardson, for their work. I'd also like to recognize the contribution of my colleague, School of Design visiting lecturer Javier Viramontes, for his poetic branding of tonight's lecture, as well as this year's series overall. For tonight's lecture, Javier engaged visual communications master's student Cheryl Wang to help expand this work into the motion graphics piece that you see on the screen. Thank you both for extending the Vignelli ethos by using it for inspiration, Javier and Cheryl. Rochester Institute of Technology's Vignelli Center for Design Studies is an international hub for education, research, collaboration, and advocacy, which expands the scope of programs in the College of Art and Design's School of Design. The facility houses the archive of renowned designers Lela and Massimo Vignelli, whose works are icons of international design. The center and archive sit within RIT's College of Art and Design, which was built on the traditional territory of the Onondaga, or people of the Great Hill. In English, they are known as Seneca people, the keepers of the Western Door. They are one of the 6 sovereign nations that make up the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We honor the land on which RIT was built and recognize the unique relationship that the indigenous stewards have with this land. That relationship is the core of their traditions, cultures, and histories. We recognize the history of genocide, colonization, and assimilation, assimilation of indigenous people that took place on this land, Mindful of these histories, we work towards understanding, acknowledging, and reconciling. As stewards of history and content, we must acknowledge and seek to learn from our context, bad and good, ugly and beautiful. This applies to the Vignelli Center as with any archive. The Vignellis taught us that design is a systematic and scalable framework for solving problems large and small. Their philosophy, design is one, leaves us with a universal message that design is a lens through which we can envision a more inclusive and sustainable tomorrow. Tonight's guest is no stranger to the Vignelli Center or to RIT. I feel fortunate to call her both colleague and friend. Theresa Fitzgerald, RIT class of 1984 graphic design, is known for leading creative teams with a spirit of joy and collaboration for brand brilliance. Fitzgerald is a mission-driven design leader, speaker, and educator with extensive experience leading some of the world's most loved and trusted media and entertainment brands, including the Sesame Workshop, Nickelodeon, Peanuts, and Scholastic. She develops creative strategy for design vision and executes brand systems across consumer touchpoint, including marketing campaigns, social channels, retail packaging, consumer products, themed entertainment, digital products, publishing, and motion. Collaborating at the intersection of business, marketing, and creative, Fitzgerald brings a strategic, flexible, and practical approach to breathe new life into iconic brands and craft new, innovative ones. Building high-performing teams, she's committed to nurturing an inclusive environment where talent can thrive while achieving creative excellence. Believing in the power of design to help humans reach their highest potential, Fitzgerald is dedicated to cultivating the designers of the future by sharing her wealth of experience through teaching, speaking engagements, and advisory board participation. When we are lucky to have our students become thought leaders and influencers and return back home to share their applied wisdom, we rejoice. Please join me in celebrating and welcoming home Theresa Fitzgerald.
Hi there, I'm Theresa, and it's really great to be back. I wanted to thank Josh and RIT. It's been really impressive to walk around the campus today and see so many changes to the old campus. Getting a tour of the shed and this magic center is really just so inspiring. Hello. When Josh first reached out to me to come up and speak, I was thinking, gosh, I don't know what I want to talk about or how to shape where I am with my career. And so I really was thinking, like, what matters? What matters to me, and how has that really shaped my design journey? So I was going to share that with you. And when I think about what matters, it really comes down to characters. Character matters. And character is one of those words that has very broad meaning. And at different times in my life has meant different, has really shaped to mean different things. Back in the beginning, my early influences, this is me growing in upstate New York. I came from a big and creative family. We were always encouraged to make things. We had a lot of art supplies all over the place. And when learning to read, I was very challenged learning to read. I look at these two words and I still, it makes me mad that they don't rhyme. And I still think there's so many ways to spell words, and I find that baffling, and I still spend a lot of time being frustrated about that. So learning to read and being in school, tears were shed. And it was really the characters in books that became my friends and really had a deep meaning to me. This is a character from Richard Scarry's books. I loved this collection of books. And it was the drawings and the characters on these pages that just popped out and made lasting memories in me. And they really made a difference when I was like battling out letter sounds. The pictures made a difference. I saw this recently on social media, and it is truly, this is how meaningful those early stories were. They shaped how I thought culture should be. This is my dad on the left, and he, while my mom was raising us 5 kids, my dad was taking drawing classes. And there used to be a series called the Famous Artists series, and it was a correspondence class. And so he would have these big binders, do an assignment, send it to the school, and get back corrections. The school was run by Norman Rockwell, and at the end of it, he got to study with Norman Rockwell. So this man in the center is Norman Rockwell, and my dad's circled there. And so this is a sample of the kind of art that was in my house growing up, and it was really meaningful. My dad would do these studies, and they're so circa Mad Men, right, the style of them, and get back in the mail the overlay, and he got a B. And it was really learning how every detail, every shadow, the position of the head, everything goes into how you tell a story and how you visually communicate and how important that was. And that went on to have lasting impact with me. My dad told me that Norman Rockwell had this story. It's like, if a picture wasn't going well, if it wasn't quite capturing the emotion that he wanted, he said, add a puppy. And then he also added, if that wasn't quite hitting the mark, add a bandage to the puppy. I think it's so funny, but it really is one of those lessons that goes back to like, there's so many visuals in our world, and the ones that have the impact are the ones that capture your heart. There is beauty, and then there's the emotional beauty that interrupts your mind, and that is really important for what we do for communicating visually. I knew I wanted to study art. I knew that was something I wanted to do, and I thought I wanted to be a illustrator, children's book illustrator. And when it came time to go to college, I chose Rochester Institute of Technology and came here for what was then called communication arts. And here, I was really introduced to the principles of Swiss Modern, Bauhaus. I see Roger sitting right there, and I thank you for all the really foundational lessons of good design. And so when I came here, this is what I thought of typography. And I wanted to capture every little cozy detail. And I was introduced to this, which was less is more, and form follows function, and really paring things back. It was a shocking process for me to learn how to remove and yet keep the meaning, keep the story, keep the connection. After graduating, it was my decision to go to New York City, and I thought I would be there for 3 years. I thought that was something that was, I'd go, get my little experience, and leave. It ended up being many, many more years that I still live in New York. I went on to work with some of the world's most trusted and loved brands to work with their characters and design the brand vision. So really the foundation of the work that I've been so privileged to do has been design, which is really solving problems, communicating, creating systems for scale, and working with characters, and really developing and really understanding the personalities of those characters and creating stories through branding. And that has, I was going to share a couple case studies of examples that I've been doing. One of my first jobs really in branding was working with Peanuts, back in the day when there was newspapers, the comic strip. And during this time, Charles Schulz was still alive, and so I would work closely with him, and I would work in the New York office, and what we would do is work with his characters and work with his art and create brand systems for him that would go into creating, really identifying the characters in a systematic way and then applying them to design licensed properties, licensed characters, and his characters, Charlie Brown, is so iconic that is really easy to boil them down to their most simple essence, and they're still identifiable. The zigzag shirt, that face is always called Blockhead by Lucy. Each character had their own profile and storytelling. So it was always, again, working from the original source, working from those original characters, working from those simple stories that Charles Schulz was able to do in several panels, bring them into the world in a way that they're recognizable and consistent. So early on, there's Snoopy at the Macy's Day Parade. And so it was working with the balloon creators at Macy's to make sure that the shapes and forms were on model. Moving on to Nickelodeon, which was a very different company than working with Charles Schulz. It was a young company with a kind of a rogue spirit. Making rules and breaking rules for kids, irreverence, was part of the spirit. So again, these are three icons of the brand: the splat, the orange splat, the green slime, and the yellow sponge for SpongeBob. One of the big opportunities when I got there, the company was needing to update their logos. They had always had what they called a shapeshifter logo, they didn't have one logo. They had a collection of logos with a unified font and color. And it was feeling a little dusty, a little vintage. So I worked with the internal team, built an in-house creative team to reinvent the splat. And so what we did with this freeform splat and created a collection of logos that the legal team was not so happy with. It's difficult to protect a logo that changes all the time. But we really felt that this reflected the spirit of the company, which was a rule-breaking company at the time. Then taking this identity and this philosophy that we're on kids' side, and we are here for kids, and we are here to empower them, and it was really about fun. And having the logo, the splat, be a container that could introduce all content to it, and it could just morph into different shapes, different materials, different icons, and then always come back to the content. So it was packaging for new shows. And then we had this task of taking this identity and applying it to every area of the business. So it's everything from the office space to the identity system, to the gifts that they would give away at holidays, and really evolving it. And so part of managing a brand like this is coming up with the standards that make sure that everything feels related and unified, and yet knowing that you have to make decisions to stretch your brand for different mediums. So what works on air and what you can do on air differs from what you can do in corporate communications, what you can do with consumer products, which is often working with a collection of manufacturers. So you're constantly building assets that, and building relationships so that people understand the creative filters, they have the design tools, and so that they can go and expand your brand, and it still feels on model, it still feels true to the essence that you've envisioned. This was a trade show booth where, again, the splat is feeling organic, and it houses the new content, which is the shows that they're promoting. During that time, we launched, I'm gonna say over 20 shows, and so it was always creating the brands for the different shows, as well as how the shows related to the master brand of Nickelodeon. One of the really fun projects there is slime was part of the early programming in the 90s, and it was one of those key things that kids absolutely loved. And parents were like, like, don't get it on me. And that was the essence of the Nickelodeon brand, where it's like, parents know no one's getting hurt, but like they don't want any part of it. Where kids just like, they just were drawn to it. So it was taking this essence of slime and bringing it out of a show and creating a graphic system for the spirit of slime. So it was creating a collection of graphic assets and really a philosophy, like a slime philosophy that could be brought to any product. It could be for consumer products packaging. It could be for a line of clothing. So it was like, it always had to have a cause and effect, like as though you were just slimed. Like there had to be a logic to how slime worked as a free essence, but then a rule to make it feel authentic. Creating coffee table book with, there was this plastic slime cover. This was not sustainable, guys. But it was really fun. We did get a couple complaints about the plastic breaking and slime getting in the bookstore. And then also taking the design to the annual awards. So every year we designed the graphic package for the Kids' Choice Awards. So it was a matter of creating a theme for each season, and then creating a style guide that could be used by the on-air team to create the staging and the orange carpet, the everything from the product to the motion graphics for the experience. So it was creating something that felt on brand to the theme, and working with each of the different teams across the organization and partners outside to create products that all felt unified. So when I had first started at Nickelodeon, there was this character that lived in a pineapple under a sea, and I was doing some of the design for the original style guide, and I just felt like, this will never go anywhere, guys. And boy, was I wrong. So the programming of SpongeBob, the brilliance of it is they played it at 2 in the afternoon for kids coming home from school, and then they also played at 2 a.m. for kids coming home from the bars. And it pretty immediately had a broad audience of fans, and we went on to, again, the characters became so iconic that we could graphically break them down and have them still be highly recognizable. And then creating style guides for a collection of products that, could go on anything. I mean, when you're working with consumer products in the way of licensing, you're creating materials and then you're working with the partners to see how they're adapting the materials. And some partners do that better than others. And then creating the consumer product packaging that we created a guide that created a format that's adapted to horizontal, all the formats of boxes, open boxes, closed. So it's thinking in terms of maintaining the character, what feels true to the stories, and then the system that is going to scale for all the variety that's required. And then I moved on from Nickelodeon, which was so fun, so messy, so irreverent, was the word I was looking for earlier, onto Sesame Street, which Sesame Street is the educational nonprofit that was born in the Cultural Revolution of 1969, and it really was the first of its kind. It was the first kids show to use television to educate children. And it seems so, obvious now, but at the time that was the first time that had happened. And one of the things they did is they wanted to create an environment where everyone was welcome. It was a multiracial cast. It was monsters and Muppets that are monsters, and people of all ages and colors coming together in one place. It had Sesame Street really created so much of the kids' entertainment, and it was a really big cultural change coming from Nickelodeon to Sesame, where Sesame sees themselves as an educational brand that entertains, where Nickelodeon is that entertainment brand that empowers, So one of the quotes from Jim Henson that I always love is, "We see with our eyes and we know with our hearts." And that is the genius of Jim Henson. He was really the creator who made the Muppets and really took all the educational material and created songs, stories, and skits that were so funny that it was easy to forget you were learning. I think as designers, this is one of our gifts, is we learn to see with our eyes, but it's really important to know with our hearts. Because again, it is that emotional connection that it's not just creating beauty, but is it reaching people? Is it engaging? Is it entertaining? Is it educating? How do you reach someone? This is, as most of the people know, the show is through these characters. Many of them have been there since the beginning. They're very iconic. Each character is well defined. They have their personality. They're behind the scenes assigned a curriculum that all stories kind of flow through. Part of the work that we did at Sesame Street was create branded materials to, one, refresh the brand. Again, it was one of those situations where Sesame Street's been around a long time, and there's always a new generation of young children. So creating new materials to inspire and connect with a new, fresh audience, and yet keeping very, very true to the deep connection people had for the nostalgia of their experience with the brand. So whether you're a child that grew up on Sesame Street, or your, your kid did, it's really, one of the things that's really clear at Sesame is it's really hard to make a change because people are so connected to it. So the door on the stoop is a color green. If they change the color green, it's like, oh my gosh, the mail that the emails they get about like, you can't do that to my Sesame. It's very hard to change something that's like so deeply rooted and introduced to people at such an important time in their life. Again, the importance of characters, and in my world, those young characters, they really shaped my culture, you know. Same for Sesame. So real, heartfelt, simple, free, and fun was really the essence of the brand. And what we do there is make sure we really educated partners and new employees so that they understood kind of the tenets of the brand. So when they were off making something, they would be stretching us forward. You know, it's not about just only following the rules, but also being part of the reinvention with whatever expression. So this guy really pays the bills. People love Elmo. He is the rock star there. He's really probably on 80% of the product that's made. They say if it doesn't have Elmo on it, it's not going to sell. I don't know if anyone noted on a recent social campaign that they had where Elmo had tweeted just, you know, a regular question like, how's everyone doing out there? And they got back thousands and thousands of responses of, you know, people in our country were really struggling, and they felt comfortable like telling Elmo on Twitter of like, you know, my mom's dying, I lost my job, you know, like it was like they were taken aback on, you know, the amount of heartfelt response that this character has a deep and meaningful connection to people. So in the creative team at Sesame, it was really important that every time someone who loves Elmo engages in Elmo, it feels true to their character. So the team there is a collection of designers, illustrators, sculptors, digital designers, and so we again would create the guidelines so that every time, you know, there was standards for these characters. So in a way, each character becomes a brand. We spent a lot of time on eyeballs. This is a drawer from the Henson archive, and when they're building new Muppets, they have a great collection to go by. We would create style guides with specific directions of proportions and scale and position. This is Cookie Monster's eyes. Also, always working with the actual materials and creating color palettes inspired by the Muppets. And then we did dozens and dozens of style guides for different areas of the business. There's style guides for 3D plush in different materials. There was brand guides for the educational nonprofit Sesame Workshop, Sesame Street, brand guides, style guides, toolkits, and so different campaigns. So you really get to know a brand when you're working in-house. And each the different ways of telling stories and the different audiences are part of what you create materials to communicate consistently for. So this was a motion kit. We worked with an outside team called Trollback, and we had never had a motion kit there. So we had created this as a collection of templates and working files that we could give to different co-productions around the world. There's 30 different co-productions. You could see the different logos. So creating a branded system and really a branded portal in and out of footage that could be highly adaptable for whatever the audience, whatever the need, whether it's more of a serious topic or something that was more joyful, using the logo as a portal. We always were amused when bad Elmos came in and really reminded us of how important, it's like one of those things, when good design works, it's almost it's less easy to notice, but when there's mistakes, it's really understanding how to fix those mistakes and what makes them off model. And so this would be a brand without standards. Working with a brand like this, there's always many audiences that you're designing for, and so understanding again the character of the brand and the characters themselves, so that when you're creating materials for preschoolers, you have a certain sensibility. They're not readers. You need to create things that are simple through the lens of a young child, and still communicate. When you're designing for fans, you can be more irreverent, have more fun with it, be more subtle and abstract. And then we did a lot of work for our business partners and then moms, parents of young kids, creating educational materials, using the characters to help the parents explain very complex topics to kids. So there's the show that many people watched and knew and loved, and then there was a collection of social impact projects that often weren't broadly known, but amazing resources through their website and through their partners, creating educational materials for parents and families going through tough times. So we had created materials around gun violence, how parents can talk to young children if there's something in your community, parental addiction, creating materials, how to talk to a 3-year-old when there's addiction in the household, talking about homelessness. So Sesame would take on these tough topics and use the Muppets and to help kids understand these difficult topics. And that's something like, Snoopy probably couldn't do that. We didn't talk, so. But they're like, so the different characters have their different roles. Yeah, Nickelodeon wouldn't do that. Like, it was the brand of Sesame Street that would be trusted in that way to help parents in that way. So working with partners to bring the brand to life in different stories. We did a lot of digital books and games. This is one of the most famous ones with bringing the monster at the end of this book alive in an app, which is really popular. Doing photo shoots for fashion brands. This was an Australian partner that was, we actually shot this on the set, which was pretty difficult to do. I mean, not difficult, hard to get to the set to do something commercial like this. There's, and then we had the privilege of designing, taking all the essence of the brand and bringing it to life in the design of the office space. So again, thinking of the audience and working with the architects and bringing the furry kind of fun feeling that people feel connected to Sesame. So when they come to the office to do business, they have this feeling in a little more sophisticated, grown-up way, but still feels like the characters. In 2019, the Sesame celebrated its 50-year anniversary. We worked with an agency called Metson Creative, and we really struck on such a beautiful, simple logo and graphic package that could be used throughout the whole year around the world. And so there was a special, there was a lot of documentaries made. There was our annual gala with Michelle Obama was awarded there. So it was a special year. There was lots of opportunities. One of the most special ones was working with Josh on the Meta Project in 2019. His senior class took on the urgency of play and created design concepts that were smart, brilliant, sustainable, and on brand. A very meaningful project during my time there was working with Sesame Street, had a 5-year partnership with the International Rescue Committee. And with that, it was around the Syrian War, and there were, all the numbers have changed and gone up, but at the time there was millions of displaced families with young children. The average age of a child at a refugee camp is 13 years. So basically, childhoods are spent in these camps. And so what Sesame again did, based on their original formula, using technology, using Muppets, Media, Muppets, and Mission to create special content for the children who were struggling being displaced. So the first part of that was social emotional content to help kids cope with toxic stress, and then introducing educational materials. If you can't, the brain going through toxic stress is literally stopped from learning. So it's working with the IRC. They would be the man on the ground, and Sesame would be the stories and the training materials that would connect these two. It was very rewarding and very successful. It was so successful that we took those materials and we scaled it. We created those materials to be customized to different territories who were going through similar situations. So when the Ukrainian war broke out, we quickly customized the material and translated it to Ukrainian for those families. And unfortunately there's lots of other areas now. It's been translated to Spanish for what's going down in South America. There's these materials are really making a difference in kids' lives. So I like this quote from Malcolm Gladwell: "The values of the world we inhabit and the people we surround ourselves with have a profound effect on who we are." And I really, after all the years in kids media and so much fun, really working at Sesame was extremely special to how I view my purpose, my passion, kind of how I want to be. And so I left Sesame last year, and I am in a new stage, and I find it very exciting and forever changing. Spending much of my career in-house, I am now consulting, and it's, this image kind of captures what it is. It is ever moving, ever changing, and exciting, and unknown. I'm working as a fractional design leader, looking to work with organizations that I can lend my experience of managing a brand in-house or on big projects. For me, I've had a very unusual career path, which has been a straight line. You see, I started interested in kids' books, kids' stories, and so that's what I've done. I think this is the path most people have. And so I feel that now I'm on this path, and I am excited by it. I think great things happen along the way. So here's some thoughts I have at this point. I love our field because I really don't think there's a ladder. You don't need to go up the ladder to be a master designer. When I think about so much of the last, 2 jobs, from Nickelodeon to Sesame, has really been, my design is creating a vision and growing a team and working with that team and working across the organization to get everyone on board to the vision. And so I really feel that we're so privileged because when you start your career, it's the design, and you're designing and you're close to the projects and you're working on the projects and you're working on the team with the projects. And then for me, and often people are given more responsibility. If you're doing that well, you're given more responsibility. And you're working on projects and you're directing the teams and you're putting all the pieces in place and you're working with the project manager and the schedule and you're kind of coordinating the project. And you're still working on the work, but then you're working with the people and the projects. And then if you choose to go up more, you're really working with, in some cases, the politics or the policies, and you're shaping the vision and you're organizing, you're conducting. And design is still the foundation of all of it, but you're designing different things. You're helping people design careers, you're helping the team design roles, and you're creating a strategy that the design projects plug into. And this kind of work isn't for everyone. I loved being close to the work. I loved making things. I loved working on my own. And I really, for me, it took a long time to get comfortable leading groups of people, to get comfortable being farther from the actual design. And what I do love about it is there's really room for everyone in the room. It's actually needed. We need master makers, and we need people who can create an environment where creative can thrive, where people feel welcome, and I think it's really special when you can align someone's talent and their temperament and put them on the vision, and then everything goes up. And that's very rewarding to me. It's really important to be kind. I think more now than ever, people are busy, they're distracted, there's a lot to do, there's a lot of focus on productivity, but I think it's really most important to remember to collaborate with kindness. People like to work with who they like. It's important to build the meaningful relationships, so when you get into trying to get something approved, you can bank on that. You can go back and forth with a meaningful relationship, and because you've grown the trust. It's really, as you, if you choose to go up the ladder, it's really, these skills are really important to have, actually, at every point. And be curious. It's really the foundation of being a designer. Asking better questions, wonder. Something I see a little less of just because everyone's so busy is we need to play. So much is learned, so much mistakes happen, fun happens, the unexpected. We need to make space for self-care and passion projects. This is really critical. I've seen in the workspace so much focus on productivity and optimizing, and that can be the opposite of what creative is about. So it's really important to do that. Yeah. So one of the things I've been curious about is, why does that spelling make me so mad? And I think back and I don't think spelling makes everyone mad. And I think back to a time when I was working at, the company I worked at for Peanuts was called United Media. And we had the opportunity to update the brand for that company. They wanted to, again, refresh, and they had an old kind of stodgy thing, and they wanted to feel fresh and like a media company. And so we did it. We did the design of the logo. Logo's approved, looks great. We did the letterhead, right? The letterhead and the business cards. And you know, I mean, when you do these things, you do the design group looks at it, and then it goes to all the people who need to sign off on it, the CEO, the president, the head of marketing. Everyone's reading it and signing off. Well, in the name of the company, we spelled the name of the company wrong. It was called, the company was called United Media. We spelled it untied media, and we printed like 10,000 pieces of stationery, and it's like, so shortly after that we created the rat department, because it just like, we just, when you're designing with type, you don't always see, you're looking at other stuff, you know, you're looking at other things, and then also, like, it's possible that there's dyslexics. You know, it's possible there could be dyslexics in the room. So I became curious about this, because not all adults think about reading and why it was hard. So over the last several months, I've been like, just had, you know, when you're curious, it's good to notice what you notice. And so last spring, I was looking at the lineup for the AIGA conference in New York, and the opening speaker was talking about dyslexia and innovation. And he is talking, Jeff Conger is his name, and he was talking about, he's trying to present dyslexia as a benefit. As, yes, learning to read is difficult, but there's all these other benefits of how dyslexic process space, connect dots, see new relationships. So I was like, how, like, that, he's talking about that at the AIGA? That's so crazy, because I'm thinking about this, right? So as I do more research, I found an organization called Made by Dyslexia, and that's Virgin's, Richard Branson's, he's dyslexic, and he has created a nonprofit called Made by Dyslexia, and they are making a lot of noise in the way that they say 40% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic. Up to 30% of architects and inventors are dyslexic, and 1 in 5 people are dyslexic. So our education system isn't testing for this, and 2, it's seen as a broken thing. Like, oh, you know, you're having problems reading. And what these people, so let me continue. With Made by Dyslexia has been working with LinkedIn, and they have gotten LinkedIn to identify dyslexic thinking as one of the world forums of the future characteristics of dyslexic thinking is going to be needed in the future of work. The skills that a dyslexic have are a benefit in the workplace for the future, not just a problem for reading. And then I also encountered this man, Gil Gershoni. He has a branding agency in San Francisco. And he started a whole area around dyslexic design thinking. And he has a dream to rebrand dyslexia so that it is not seen as like a disability, but as a benefit. And so all of these together have really kind of given me a passion for thinking about what I'm thinking about, noticing what I notice. So I have, one of my little side projects is I've taken on learning to be a reading tutor for dyslexic kids. And so I'm sitting with them, going through the work. And like, this is what reading looks like. This is what reading looks like. Yuck. It's gross. I feel like as a typographer, as a designer, it's bad enough being a struggling reader. Like, why do you have to be visually abused? So I am, while I continue my little side project of tutoring, which I call heroic, because I think reading's still really hard, I'm breaking down these lessons plans thinking, there's an opportunity here. There is, as you know, 26 letters in the alphabet, 5 vowels, 21 consonants. There's 44 sounds that vowels make. And this should be a beautiful system. At the center where I'm tutoring, my little side tutor thing, these are kids up to 16 years old who might be on a 2nd grade reading level. I mean, they're looking at that. That's insulting to a smart person who just happens to have a brain that works different. So this is one of my side projects right now is, again, going back to the really strong and clear visual thinking. I would like those words to somehow be signaled what the words say. So when you're learning them, they're not only visually beautiful, but it's clear that those 2 sounds are going to sound different. They're not going to rhyme. So we'll see. Next time I'm here, I may show you more on this. This is the end. I'm just saying, if this presentation didn't work for you, I edited my talk. Thank you.
We have time for some questions, if there are any in the audience here.
Well, first of all, thank you. I think it's awesome that you've been able to be a part of so many projects that have affected probably so many of us in the room. And I was just wondering, as you come back to RIT as an alum, what are some aspects that you like to compare and contrast with the current RIT versus the one that you experienced?
That is actually a really good question because, I don't like to say this out loud, but I graduated in 1984, 40 years ago. I think there had to be like a quarter of the buildings. It's a much, much smaller campus. And I took one elective class they had these Apple computers, and we spent all semester creating a cube in that we could move in space. And I was like, no. I had the same reaction I had to SpongeBob. Like, this is going nowhere. Again, very wrong, very, very wrong. What I loved about RIT, and again, I had to work very hard to be here. I came here as an illustrator, and I came here as a decorator, and I learned to think in concept and think with purpose. I was not articulate about what I saw and how it needed to change. Like, I had to work really hard to be here. I was not one of the students who was, a natural or exposed to a lot of art. I mean, we had Norman Rockwell, right? But it wasn't like I had a deep art history. I had art history here that was like so illuminating. I love my art history class here. I always appreciated that is a very practical approach to a profession. Got a job very easily out of school. Really learned the discipline of how to be in the world, which I'm really grateful for. Because my dad always had like the jokes about, art school and, what that could bring. And that was not my situation. I was always, I felt very well trained here, well supported.
I was wondering what the relationship is now between the Muppets and Sesame Street, because it seems like they're two distinct, separate brands now.
Yeah.
So do you not, touch the Muppets at all? Is it too? How does that
So
work?
Jim Henson was the creator of all the Muppets, and the Henson Workshop is still actively creating those Muppets and creating new stories, new characters, new puppets. They, around the time, I'm gonna say in the 90s, I don't know exactly when, Jim Henson was looking to sell the Muppets. And what happened is Sesame Street, the educational nonprofit, bought their Sesame Muppets. So they bought Big Bird and Cookie Monster, Bert and Ernie. Kermit was part of the other family. He was part of the other Muppet family. So the other Muppets, so the Muppet Show, Disney bought them. So it's not too often that Sesame has much to do with like Kermit or Miss Piggy or any of those other, because they're profit Muppets. And Sesame Muppets are nonprofits. Yeah. So they really, it was almost like a divorce in a way, Yeah. I mean, there's no ill feeling, but they just went on to tell different stories. Yeah.
Yes, are there any lessons or practices from designing more so for children, or at least a child-oriented brand, that you think could stand to be applied to, when you're designing for maybe a more adult audience?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked that, because I think about that a lot now, because I don't want to be slotted to just work for the kids industry. And the way I see it is, working, so first of all, when I was hiring for a design, I was just talking to Josh about this, when I was hiring team, often I would hire people who had not worked for kids, because it was more important to me that you had great design principles and had really strong graphic design skills, and then could specialize them for the kids market. I think a lot of kids design is very bad. I mean, I think it's ugly. I think it's too much color, too much, it's not what I consider good design. It's not what I learned here, So I love the practice of, Swiss modern design coupled with kids. And not that everything has to be sparse, but I do enjoy that. And so designing for children, often, they're not like little adults. They do have different needs. They often are non-readers, right? So and then distracted. Like you have to like really be clear in your, you have to be quick, clear, funny, engaging. And the way I think about it now is with the grown-ups, I feel like we're all like that now. Like no one's reading, no one reads copy more than a headline, and it's still capturing someone's emotion in an unexpected way is probably the best way to. So I feel like we've all been brought down to the 3-year-old, the 8-year-old, maybe if you're like a big kid level. Yeah. So I actually think working in the kids field has honed my skills to work for adults now.
Have any other questions? One right here.
When you're working on branding or all these things, so this is more of a corporate question. So, how do you know that what are things that are important for a corporate to have, like in the stationery? So, for example, if you're working with Nickelodeon or any other company, how do you know that these are the specific things that they will need in the future, or how do you know that these are the things that you need to design for the company?
If I understand your question, it's really a combination of working with all the different business teams. So at every step of the way, there's finance, they're working, 5 years down the road to create a path forward. I'm gonna say Nickelodeon, there is a whole cadence of when you launch a show, what kind of graphic materials you need to launch a show. And then if the show's a success, if you wanna create consumer products, then there's a whole collection of brand assets that to be created for that. It's almost like a menu of parts. It's like, where do you wanna go with this business, and how do you need to support it with the tools that make that possible. So it's a combination of the business goals and the marketing team, kind of providing the budgets and the goals of where they want the business to go, and then identify the best way to get there through the materials needed.
Okay. Oh, we have one more.
How do you kind of balance creativity as a hobby and kind of creativity as a career? And how do you kind of keep those?
Ha! I mean, I think at different times it's more graceful than others, right? I mean, there are certain times of my work career that I didn't balance it. I mean, I worked quite a bit. I mean, now it's a little bit more the other way. Now I have time to wonder and, kind of feed that creative on the other side. I feel fortunate because the work that I've done has been creative and professional. Like, the working for the kids field, much of the work was very, very creative, which not everyone has. I don't think I'd be hired for to design for the financial industry. I don't think I have that, that doesn't speak to me, and I don't think they'd find value in my work. It's like that kind of thing. I worked for companies that attracted people where the creativity was very high, and the expectation for, delivering on that was very, there was a lot of pressure. There's strong, very tight deadlines. And, it was this kind of harmony of a very playful brand and attracting very creative people, but really being, you gotta deliver on time. And really sometimes at some point seeing people who couldn't, straddle that to have this playful side but then be highly productive is sometimes a difficult balance. You can misread the room,
Well, maybe we'll take one last question. Go ahead.
I was wondering if you could go into more detail about how you hire different designers, or what you specifically look for.
When it depends on what the job is, right? Like what the department needs, are you a student?
Yeah.
Are you graduating?
No, I'm a freshman.
Wow, hi. Wait, ask your question again. What am I looking for? What is the?
Or what stands out to you in the hiring process?
It's really a combination of things, and a strong portfolio is one, and what makes a strong portfolio? Work that shows dedication, that shows creativity and craft. That really, again, for me, I think it's can you communicate something that touches my heart? You know, that's something memorable. And then, you know, having skills or craft is also important. That, you know, again, the soft skills of work are really important too. And, you know, back in the day, you know, people still have in-person interviews, but, you know, when someone would come to my office and the way they'd sit in the chair, the way that the care that they'd put their coat down, or, you know, just how someone moves through the world, like we put so much value in our how our brain thinks, but as humans we take in so much about creative humanity, you know, and in some ways we're always making connections and you know, one, people want to work with someone who complements who they are and how they are. And when I'm hiring for a team, I'm looking at an ecosystem, and it's really like how does this person complement the team? Do they have, you know, I read a book several years ago called Quiet by Susan Cain, and it was really explained in like the difference between introvert and extrovert, and I thought it was so interesting. Are you familiar with that book?
No, but it sounds
So interesting. It really changed how I managed, because it describes how people where they get their energy. Do they get energy around people, or do they get energy alone? And you know, it's a workplace, people are doing what they're doing, but to me it's really interesting to find where they thrive, you know, where their talent is and where they thrive, and to, you know, while running a business, trying to align all these like soft skills, and it really makes a difference to how a team works together, how they grow to care about what they're doing and each other. I feel like I can always see and feel an unhappy designer in their work. So your question is, so develop your humanity. I think, you know, I think we're all looking at AI and how that's going to change, you know, our craft, our industry, our productivity, all the things. I really think growing yourself as a person who's kind, who's caring, who can notice, you know, notice what you're noticing. Respond, you know, it's going to be our humanity that runs these machines and makes them ethical and makes the whole ecosystem successful. So I don't know if that's a real answer, but I truly believe in what I'm saying. I think you know, I was just saying to Josh, I feel like I want to celebrate small talk again, because I feel people are so obsessed with their devices, they're not looking up and saying, oh my God, I love that shirt, you know, or I didn't read that book. You know, they're not exchanging these little ideas. Great things happen, you know, with the surround sound. I get afraid if we get too productive that we're gonna, you know, miss these moments, and you know, it's about us. It's not about the machines, you know. So I think design education should really also, while there's so much to learn, so much technically to learn these days, I think we need to grow as humans. You know, continue to really grow how we relate to each other, grow flexibility for how change is happening and how we'll need to pivot to change that. I'm gonna stop talking, 'cause I
Well, I think that's a wonderful message to end on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. Look forward to our lecture series in the fall. And stay in touch with us over social media, and please join our emailing list at the Vignelli Center website. Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful evening.